Good morning, my dear students. Hope you are all fine. Our lesson for today is subtracting mixed numbers. Okay, now in our first example, which is 3 and 1 over 2 minus 1 and 1 over 3, remember that 3 and 1 are the whole numbers and 1 over 2 and 1 over 3 are the fractions. So, when subtracting mixed numbers, first of all, change the fractions into fractions with common denominator like the way we did in our previous lessons. Then subtract the fractions together and the whole numbers together. In our example, 3 and 1 over 2 minus 1 and 1 over 3, to change it into fractions with common denominator, first of all, multiply the numerator and denominator of the first fraction by 3. Why? Because 3 is the denominator of the second fraction. Then multiply 1 and 3 in the second fraction by 2, since 2 is the denominator of the first fraction. This gives us 3 and 3 over 6 minus 1 and 2 over 6. We notice here that 3 over 6 is greater than 2 over 6, so we can subtract the fractions. Now, by subtracting 3 minus 1, we get 2, and by subtracting 3 over 6 minus 2 over 6, we get 1 over 6, and the answer is 2 and 1 over 6. Now here is another example, 4 and 1 over 4 minus 1 and 2 over 3. As we said earlier, we change the fractions into fractions with common denominator. This is the first step in the subtraction process. Here we get, after finding the common denominator, 4 and 3 over 12 minus 1 and 8 over 12. But in this case, notice in the fractions that 3 over 12 is less than 8 over 12. So these two fractions cannot be subtracted. So in this case, when we cannot subtract the fractions, we rename the first fraction. Now I will explain how and what is the meaning of renaming a fraction is. In our example, 4 and 3 over 12, as you already know, that we can write it in the form of 4 plus 3 over 12. 4 could be written as 3 plus 1. Okay, now let's have a look at the denominator of the fraction 3 over 12. The denominator is 12. So 1, which is in blue, this one could be written as 12 over 12. Why? Because when dividing the number by itself, the answer is 1, or the quotient is 1. Like when dividing 12 over 12, the answer is 1. Now, let's substitute the fraction 12 over 12. Let's substitute 1 by 12 over 12. So we get 3 plus 12 over 12, which was 1 in blue, plus 3 over 12. This gives us 3 plus 15 over 12. 15 comes from adding 3 plus 12 in the numerators. Finally, we get 3 and 15 over 12. This is the renaming process. We will go back now to the beginning of our example, 4 and 1 over 4 minus 1 and 2 over 3. As we already said, the first step is to change the fractions into fractions with common denominator. This gives us 4 and 3 over 12 minus 1 and 8 over 12. Second, we rename the first fraction, and we got 3 and 15 over 12 minus 1 and 8 over 12. Notice after the renaming, the two fractions are 15 over 12 and 8 over 12. 15 is greater than 8 here, so we can easily subtract the fractions. By subtracting the whole numbers, 3 minus 1, we get 2, and by subtracting the fractions, we get 7 over 12. This is the final answer. Okay, let's work now on a third example, which is 9 and 1 over 2 minus 6 and 3 over 4. We need to change the fractions into fractions with common denominator. This is done by multiplying the numerator and denominator of first fraction by 2, because when looking at the denominators 2 and 4, notice that 4 is a multiple of 2. And we get 9 and 2 over 4 minus 6 and 3 over 4. Now by looking at the fractions part, 2 over 4 is less than 3 over 4. So we are not able to subtract 2 over 4 minus 3 over 4. What do we do in this case? We rename the first part of the equation, which is 9 and 2 over 4. Together now we will rename the mixed number 9 and 2 over 4. Let's think of two numbers to be added together to give me 9, such that one of them is 1. What two numbers could be added together to give me 9, such that one of them is 1? Yes, they are 8 and 1. 8 plus 1 equals 9. Now the second step is to think of a fraction that gives me 1. I need to change 1 into a fraction such that the numerator and denominator are the same number, which is 4, like the denominator in the fraction 2 over 4. What is this fraction? It is 4 over 4, correct. So now I have 8 plus 4 over 4 plus 2 over 4 minus 6 and 3 over 4. Now I can add the two fractions together to give me 8 and 6 over 4 minus 6 and 3 over 4. Finally, I can subtract the fractions together and the whole numbers together to come up with the final answer, which is 2 and 3 over 4. For listening, and good luck, my students.